Right now, at this very moment, American soldiers are stationed in more countries than the Roman Empire ever conquered. We're talking about 750 to 800 military installations spanning from Japan to Germany, from Qatar to Djibouti. A global presence so vast that the sun literally never sets on American military power. But here's what nobody's telling you. This isn't about protecting democracy or fighting terrorism. The real reasons run much deeper, and they're reshaping the world order in ways most Americans don't realize. To understand this empire of bases, you need to grasp one crucial fact. The United States maintains more overseas military bases than all other countries combined. Think about that. China has around 9 overseas bases. Russia has roughly 21. France has about 13. Britain, once the empire where the sun never set, has around 16. America? Somewhere between 750 and 800, depending on how you count them. These aren't just tiny outposts. We're talking about massive installations like Ramstein Air Base in Germany, which houses over 50,000 American military personnel and family members, essentially a small American city transplanted onto European soil. Or Camp Humphreys in South Korea, the largest overseas American base in the world, covering 3,500 acres and costing $11 billion to construct. But here's where it gets interesting. This network didn't emerge after 9/11 or even after the Vietnam War. Its foundations were laid 80 years ago, at the end of World War II, when American troops occupied the defeated Axis powers. And unlike every other conquering army in history, we never left. The question is, why? Most people assume it's simple. America needs bases to respond to threats and protect allies. But that explanation barely scratches the surface. The real story involves something far more calculated, a grand strategy that transformed America from a wartime victor into a permanent global hegemon. And it's costing American taxpayers roughly $150 billion per year to maintain. The surface reason: defense and deterrence. On the surface, the Pentagon will tell you these bases serve 3 functions: deterring adversaries, reassuring allies, and enabling rapid crisis response. And to be fair, there's truth here. A base in South Korea deters North Korean aggression. Installations in Eastern Europe signal commitment to NATO allies. Bases in the Middle East allow rapid deployment during regional crises. But this is like explaining why someone bought a mansion by saying they needed somewhere to sleep. Technically true, but missing the larger picture entirely. The real reasons: the deep dive factor. 1. The geography of control. Here's what most people miss. America's base network isn't randomly distributed. It follows a precise pattern. Bases cluster around critical choke points and strategic corridors that control global commerce. Look at a map. Notice where American bases are concentrated? The Strait of Hormuz, where 21% of global petroleum passes through. We have major installations in Bahrain, Qatar, and the UAE. The Strait of Malacca, through which $3.4 trillion in trade flows annually. We maintain significant presence in Singapore and have access agreements throughout Southeast Asia. The Suez Canal, handling 12% of global trade, we operate from Djibouti, just miles away. This isn't coincidence. It's strategy. By positioning forces near these maritime choke points, the United States can guarantee, or threaten to deny, the free flow of global trade. And here's the crucial part. This benefits America even during peacetime. Just the presence of American bases assures shipping companies, insurance markets, and trading nations that commerce will flow uninterrupted. Think of it like this. America isn't just a global policeman. It's the landlord controlling access to the world's most valuable real estate. Factor 2. The dollar's empire. Now let's follow the money, because this gets fascinating. There's a direct connection between America's military presence and the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency. the currency everyone uses for international trade, especially oil. After World War II, America brokered a deal with Saudi Arabia and other oil producers. Sell oil in dollars, and we'll provide military protection. This arrangement, established in the 1970s, created what's known as the Petrodollar System. Suddenly, every country needed dollars to buy energy, which meant holding dollar reserves, which meant buying U.S. Treasury bonds. The military bases enforce this system. Our installations in the Persian Gulf aren't just there to fight wars. They guarantee the security of regimes that price their oil in dollars. Remove those bases, and Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, or the UAE might reconsider their currency arrangements. That would weaken dollar demand globally, raising borrowing costs for the U.S. government and potentially triggering economic consequences that would dwarf the cost of maintaining these bases. Here's the mind-blowing part. This system allows America to print money and have the world accept it because everyone needs dollars for international trade. The bases cost $150 billion annually, but they underwrite a financial system that channels trillions in capital through American markets. It's not an expense, it's an investment with staggering returns. Factor 3, the permanent wartime economy. Let's talk about something uncomfortable. America's economy has become structurally dependent on military spending in ways that make closing bases politically and economically difficult. Defense spending accounts for roughly $800 billion in the 2024 budget. That's 3% of GDP directly, but the indirect effects are larger. Military contracts support millions of jobs across all 50 states. Lockheed Martin employs 122,000 people. Northrop Grumman, 95,000. Boeing's defense division, tens of thousands more. Each overseas base creates a constituency. Local contractors, military families, surrounding economies that benefit from American spending. Consider Germany. Ramstein Air Base and other installations pump approximately $3.5 billion into the German economy annually. When there's talk of reducing American presence, German politicians lobby against it because thousands of German jobs depend on those bases. The same dynamic plays out in Japan, South Korea, and Italy. But here's where it gets darker. Every base justifies weapons systems. Every forward deployment requires logistics chains. Every permanent installation needs upgrades, expansions, and modernization. The military-industrial complex that President Eisenhower warned about in 1961 has evolved into something more sophisticated, a self-perpetuating system where bases justify spending, spending creates jobs, and jobs create political support for maintaining the bases. Factor 4. Preventing the next superpower. Here's the strategic endgame, and it's rarely stated this directly. America's global base network is designed to prevent any regional power from dominating their sphere the way America dominates the Western Hemisphere. Think about it geographically. U.S. bases in Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines encircle China. Bases in Germany, Poland, and the Baltics contain Russian expansion. Installations throughout the Middle East prevent any single power, whether Iran, Turkey, or a resurgent Iraq, from controlling the region's energy resources. This is what defense strategists call forward defense, or offshore balancing. Instead of fighting major wars on American soil or even in the Western Hemisphere, America projects power abroad, keeping conflicts far from home. The last time foreign militaries fought on American soil was 1812, and that's not an accident. But there's a deeper purpose: preventing peer competitors. If America withdrew from Europe, would Germany rearm and dominate the continent? If we left Asia, would Japan and South Korea develop nuclear weapons to counter China? These scenarios might lead to a multipolar world where America is just one power among several, rather than the unipolar hegemon it's been since 1991. The base network prevents these scenarios from even emerging. By providing security guarantees, America keeps allies dependent while limiting their need to develop independent military capabilities that could eventually rival American power. So why should you, sitting at home in America, care about bases in places you'll probably never visit? Because this system touches everything. The cheap goods at Walmart, shipped through sea lanes protected by the U.S. Navy operating from overseas bases. The stability of your retirement account, partially dependent on the dollar's reserve currency status, which those bases help maintain. Gas prices, influenced by America's ability to stabilize or destabilize oil-producing regions. But here's the uncomfortable reality. This system is showing cracks. China is building its own base network. Djibouti, Cambodia, potentially Solomon Islands, and Equatorial Guinea. They're creating alternative financial systems that bypass the dollar. The Belt and Road Initiative is essentially a counter-network of Chinese economic influence. We're watching the emergence of a new great power competition, and the base network is both America's greatest strategic advantage and its greatest vulnerability. Each base is a potential flashpoint, a tripwire that could drag America into conflicts that don't directly threaten the homeland. Now, to be fair, critics across the political spectrum question this empire of bases. Progressive voices argue that $150 billion annually could fund healthcare, education, or infrastructure at home. And they're not wrong about the opportunity cost. Some military strategists argue the base network is outdated, designed for the Cold War rather than modern threats like cyber attacks or terrorism. There's also the legitimacy question. Many countries host American bases because of post-Wartime arrangements they never genuinely chose. Japan's bases were imposed during occupation. The Philippines is debating whether to maintain hosting agreements. Germany has seen growing protests against American installations. And here's a valid concern. Does permanent military presence actually prevent conflict? Or does it guarantee America remains entangled in every regional dispute? History shows both outcomes. Deterrence sometimes works, sometimes triggers escalation. The counter-argument to all this? That for every dollar America spends on overseas bases, it would spend $10 fighting wars closer to home if deterrence fails. That the Pax Americana, however imperfect, has coincided with the most prosperous and least war-torn period in human history for much of the world. That no system is perfect, but the alternatives might be worse. The truth is probably somewhere in between. Here's your key takeaway. America's 800 military bases aren't a random collection of defensive outposts. They're the physical infrastructure of a global system designed to maintain American primacy through military presence, economic leverage, and strategic geography. Remember what I said at the beginning about the sun never setting on American military power? That's not just a dramatic metaphor. It's the defining feature of 21st century geopolitics. And as China rises, as Russia challenges the order, as new powers emerge, the question isn't whether this system will change. It's whether America can adapt it without triggering the very conflicts it was designed to prevent. Think about that next time you hear about bringing troops home or defending democracy abroad. The reality is far more complex, far more calculated, and far more consequential than any soundbite can capture.